Hi, everybody. This is Claudio Meirovich from Madrid, Spain, from the Sociedad Española de Ingeniería Biomédica. And I'm very happy to be participating in this fourth International Clinical Engineering and Health Technology Management Congress. I wish we had been able to be in Florida all together, but I guess we will have to wait until next year. As I have only 10 minutes, I will just go straight forward to the presentation. And what I'm going to be talking about is lessons that we learned during the COVID-19 pandemic on what I think could be improvements for emergency procurement of medical equipment. How I came up with this is very simple. It's because we have a consultancy company and we had been working last year with several organizations like World Bank, ADB, KfW, UNDP, the EU, and even the World Health Organization in the procurement of medical equipment. And while we were doing all this procurement process, we identified a number of challenges that we think that need to be tackled. I list only 6, but probably you can find a lot more. First of all, in general, procurement processes are really slow. That's why it's impossible to do emergency procurement that way. Second, in general, there is a lack of information, detailed information on the facilities where the equipment will go or needs to be installed. Usually you get list of equipment that says, for example, we need 300 monitors, but we do not know where those monitors will go to. Then there is a gap in the technical information that is required and what is provided by the suppliers. So it's always taking time to make sure that there are no gaps and that is exactly what they are proposing, what you need. But on top of that, there is usually no link between the needs and the requests. Why? Because the request takes so long to be processed that in some cases, the need is no longer a need, or the need has changed, or the need was not clearly defined for the procurement staff. On top of this, when we already know what we want, we identify the facility where it has to be installed, and we think that the process can be fast, we do not find the right distributor or the right representative to provide the technical assistance that we have in mind. Because us as engineers want to have complete technical support on site for the equipment that is going to be procured, but in many cases there are no distributors or there is no people with technical expertise in the region to provide it. So this is already very complex, but as we had a new disease in our hands, we have also new equipment that is on the market, but there is very limited information or experience on how to use it, what is the result of using it. So we're very hesitant on how to use this equipment, or we should procure it or not. With all this, several doubts, several challenges come up, and during the processes that we had last year, we came out with some ideas, some proposals, what we think that could improve that situation. I just put them right now here very quickly, 7 of them that we think that could be useful if we had them together to do in the future emergency procurement. Okay, let's go to them. The first one, planning guidelines for facilities and technologies. It's important to have some way or a tool that clearly help us identify what is going to be needed, and then other guidelines that help us develop what is going to be the technical solution. So here I can show you one simple example. There's a guideline, the forecasting tool from WHO, that can be used to determine, in the case of COVID, the number of beds and the number of tests that you need to do for a given situation. So if we have this information and it's clear, we should be able to know what we need to do. But of course, we need to have a place where we may need to install, in this case, for the facility, a hospital or a center for COVID, and we need to identify it. And if we have this information that comes with a clear procedure and technique, we may then make our design on that basis. In this way, we would be following certain protocol that would allow us to show always the same kind of results. Another thing that I thought that is important is to have needs assessment tools. If we are able to use always the same kind of tools to collect the same kind of information, the results of that assessment is going to be probably similar, which will allow us to align our solutions in a better way. On top of that, if we do market research studies, we will be able to also identify the best solutions for our client or our problem. Here an example. Last year we had the ventilators. Within WHO, they were defined within different groups, different types, and once those were defined, it was easy to say, okay, what are the needs for each one of these? If this ventilator has oxygen, doesn't have oxygen, requires monitoring, doesn't require monitoring, requires technical staff or not, based on all this, we can make a grid and identify then the best solution for our client based on the needs. We can go one step ahead, and we can also define technical specifications. When we define technical specifications, we can define them according to a format, or we can identify what specifications or what lines of the specifications are more important, or which ones are mandatory, or what would be recommended. And then we can compare with a very clear template the technical specifications of different suppliers, different manufacturers, different models for the same manufacturer. Not only this, if we were able to have guidelines for the rehabilitation works that are required, it would also speed up the process, because we would know for certain from the beginning what is required in the case of X-ray, in the case of MRI, in the case of monitors, etc. Of course, if we're going to be installing equipment that is high technology, like X-ray or MRI or a CT, it would be also nice to have templates for the testing and commissioning. So if we have templates, it's going to be fast. All this process, we're not going to be in the need of developing these tools from the beginning. We will have them, and we will be able to do the procurement right away, fast. But of course, as we were saying when we were talking about the new technology, we may say, okay, this is the technology that seems to be the best one that we need to procure, but we will need to do post-market surveillance. Whatever we procure, we should be able to follow up and see what happens with all this equipment that is procured, and if any issues were raised after the procurement. Today, we are in a position, for example, to tell if the monitors or the ventilators that were procured by WHO are used, or they have issues or not. The typical case that we can mention is the concentrators. Today we have a huge database of, or we could have a huge database of information on the condition of use of the concentrators that were bought. So what's the way forward for us? For me, to have a compendium of all these tools that were available, so that could be used in an easy way. To have an ISO standard, for example, for technical specifications. So each one of us would not need to think his own idea of how to develop the technical specifications. There would be a standard, and we would all be following the same format. And the last thing that I can think of is to set up an international database with all the relevant information of the results of public procurement with global funds, World Bank, ADB, AFB, whatever, to assist the organizations that are doing procurement in the future procurement process. There are already some tools in the market that do some kind of assessment, but it's not exactly linked to this kind of public procurement international. It's mainly linked to some kind of procurement in some of the markets in the world. So with this, and after only 10 minutes of presentation, I would like to thank you for the time you have to listen to me. And if you have any questions, any comments, please contact me at claudio@meirovichconsulting.com, and I will be happy to answer your question. Thank you very much.